Meri's personality is very hard. She's a very aggressive personality, not physically.
Mykelti Padron just detonated a truth bomb that has the entire Sister Wives universe in absolute chaos. After years of carefully measured words and diplomatic silence, Cody Brown's daughter sat down for what might be the most explosive interview in the show's history, and let me tell you, she held absolutely nothing back. The revelations she dropped about Meri Brown are so disturbing, so deeply unsettling, that fans are questioning everything they thought they knew about the Brown family dynamics.
But go in, get it done. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your capabilities, it doesn't matter when she asks. You go in, you get it done. If you complain, you get in big trouble.
This wasn't just another routine interview where a reality star dances around uncomfortable questions with vague answers and careful PR-approved responses. No, Mykelti showed up ready to burn it all down. She opened up about alleged abuse, manipulation, and emotional trauma that shaped her childhood in ways that are only now coming to light. And the target of her most damning accusations? Meri Brown, the woman who helped raise her but who Mykelti now describes as aggressive, controlling, and allegedly abusive in ways that have left lasting scars on multiple Brown children.
If you don't do it exactly to her specifications, you get in big trouble. If you have questions about how to do it better, you get in trouble. If you didn't do it in a timely manner, you get in trouble.
The interview happened on Pop Psych, a channel run by psychologist David, and it's already sending shockwaves through the Sister Wives community. Fans who've watched this family for over a decade are suddenly seeing the behind-the-scenes nightmare that cameras never captured. Mykelti didn't just hint at problems or speak in coded language. She gave specific examples, detailed memories, and painted a picture of life under Meri's care that is absolutely chilling. But here's where it gets even more complicated and more devastating. Mykelti didn't stop with Meri. She also revealed that she's distanced herself from Robyn Brown, the wife that Cody clearly favored, the woman who many believe destroyed the family. Mykelti admitted she was used as a pawn, forced to play mediator between feuding family members, and made to deliver messages that hurt her own siblings.
So there were a lot of she was very, very hard and she was very strict, and she tended to pick on me a lot, more so than the other kids. I couldn't tell you why, but
the manipulation she describes is textbook narcissistic abuse, and she's only now beginning to understand how deeply she was caught in the web. Word on the street suggests this interview is already causing massive ripples within the Brown family. Sources close to the situation whisper that certain family members are furious about Mckelty's decision to go public with such private and painful details. Others are reportedly relieved that someone finally said what needed to be said. The family that once preached unity and plural marriage harmony is now more fractured than ever, and Mckelty's truth-telling might be the final nail in the coffin of any reconciliation. Industry insiders claim this could change everything for Sister Wives moving forward. How can the show continue pretending everything is fine when one of the kids is publicly detailing alleged abuse and manipulation? How can Meri show her face at family gatherings after these accusations? And perhaps most importantly, how many other Brown children are sitting on similar stories just waiting for the right moment to speak their truth? The fallout from this interview is only beginning, and what comes next could shatter the Brown family legacy forever. The interview that just rocked the Sister Wives world happened on Pop Psych, and if you haven't watched it yet, you need to understand exactly what went down. Mykelti Padron and her husband Tony sat across from David, a clinical psychologist who specializes in analyzing reality television through a psychological lens. This wasn't some fluffy entertainment show where everyone laughs and shares cute anecdotes. This was raw, unfiltered, and brutally honest in ways that Sister Wives fans have been desperately craving for years. David asked the questions that everyone has been dying to know the answers to.
She screams at me, specifically, "Mckelty, I told you to stop, you're done." She grounds me from finishing dinner. I have to leave the table. The rest of the kids stay at the table and they can keep eating, and I can hear them giggling and Meri's still yelling at them to stop sticking their tongues out. But I'm sitting in a corner with my arms and my head bunched up together.
Why did Mykelti really move to North Carolina? What's the actual truth about her relationship with Meri? Why does the entire Brown family seem to tiptoe around certain topics? And Mykelti answered every single one with a level of candor that left viewers absolutely stunned. Her husband Tony backed her up throughout the conversation, adding his own observations and confirming that what Mykelti experienced wasn't exaggerated or misremembered. This was real trauma being discussed in real real time. The most shocking part of the interview came when David directly asked Mykelti why everyone in the family seems to dislike Meri. Fans have noticed for seasons that Meri is isolated, that the kids don't interact with her, that even Christine's book contained veiled references to problems with Meri, but never spelled out the specifics. Mykelti finally broke that silence wide open. She described Meri's personality as very hard and very aggressive, not physically but emotionally and verbally. According to Mykelti, Meri had impossibly high standards and would punish children for the smallest infractions. Mykelti explained that if you complained about a task Meri gave you, you got in trouble. If you didn't complete something exactly to Meri's specifications, you got in trouble. If you asked questions about how to do something better, you got in trouble. If you didn't finish fast enough, you got in trouble. The pattern Mykelti described is one of constant criticism, impossible expectations, and a household environment where children walked on eggshells trying not to trigger Meri's wrath. And here's the truly heartbreaking part. Mykelti revealed that Meri seemed to target her specifically, more so than the other children, though she couldn't explain why. But the abuse didn't end with the strict rules and harsh punishments. Mykelti described a more insidious pattern of manipulation that continued even as Meri aged. Meri would allegedly apologize profusely, promise to do better, and invite Mykelti on special outings or girl dates. Then, right in the middle of these supposed bonding moments, Meri would find something to get angry about. Somehow, through verbal gymnastics and emotional manipulation, she would twist the situation until Mykelti was the one apologizing for something Meri had done. Mykelti would end up feeling guilty, feeling like being in Meri's presence was an honor she didn't deserve, and feeling fundamentally bad about herself. Reports are surfacing that other Brown children have reached out to Mykelti since the interview aired, thanking her for finally speaking the truth they've all been holding inside for years. The picture Mykelti painted of life under Meri's care is absolutely devastating, and it explains so much about the family dynamics that fans have been trying to decode for years. Mykelti didn't hold back when describing Meri's personality and the environment she allegedly created for the children in her care. According to Mykelti, Meri was demanding to the point of cruelty, aggressive in her communication style, and completely unwilling to accept anything less than perfection from children who were just trying to navigate an already complicated plural family situation. Mykelti described Meri as someone who would bark orders without any consideration for a child's age, capability, or emotional state. It didn't matter if you were 7 years old or 17, Meri's expectations remained rigid and unforgiving. The message was clear. Do what Meri says, do it exactly how she wants it done, do it immediately, and don't you dare question her methods. Any deviation from this impossible standard resulted in punishment, yelling, and emotional abuse that left the children feeling worthless and terrified. What makes this even more disturbing is that Mckelty revealed Meri specifically targeted her more than the other children. She couldn't pinpoint exactly why she became Meri's primary focus, but the pattern was undeniable. While other kids might escape Meri's wrath or receive lighter consequences, Mckelty found herself constantly in the crosshairs. Insiders speculate that Mckelty's naturally empathetic and emotionally intelligent personality may have made her an easier target, someone who would internalize the abuse rather than fight back or tell other adults what was happening. The psychological impact of this targeting cannot be overstated. David, the psychologist conducting the interview, pointed out something incredibly insightful. He suggested that Mykelti might have been singled out precisely because of her emotional awareness and her tendency to self-reflect rather than explode in anger. Children who blow up when mistreated often force adults to change their behavior because the situation becomes too volatile. But children like Mykelti, who internalize the pain and try to be better, can become perpetual punching bags for abusive adults who face no consequences for their actions. Mykelti confirmed that she kept everything internal during her childhood. She didn't tell Christine what was happening. She didn't tell Cody. She didn't even confide in her siblings at the time. She just absorbed the abuse, accepted the punishments, and tried to figure out how to avoid triggering Meri's explosive temper. This isolation made the abuse even more effective, because Meri faced no accountability from other adults who might have intervened if they'd known the full extent of what was happening behind closed doors. The ripple effects of Meri's alleged behavior extend far beyond Mykelti alone. She confirmed that most of her siblings choose not to have relationships with Meri today because of how she treated them when they were younger. The shared experience of surviving Meri's household has created a bond among the Brown children, but it's a bond forged in trauma rather than love. They understand each other's pain because they lived through the same nightmare. Mykelti shared one specific memory from her childhood that perfectly encapsulates the nightmare of living under Meri's care. And honestly, it's the kind of story that makes your blood run cold. This incident happened in Wyoming when Mykelti was about 7 years old, a time when Christine was working a night shift at the museum, Janelle was working late, and Cody was traveling for his sales job. Meri was left in charge of all the kids, and what should have been a normal family dinner turned into a traumatic experience that Mykelti still remembers decades later. Picture this scene. Mykelti, Hunter, Maddie, and Aspen are all sitting around the dinner table eating the food Meri prepared. Mykelti made sure to mention that Meri's cooking was absolutely disgusting, always nasty and gross, which honestly just adds another layer to how unpleasant mealtimes must have been. But these are kids, right? They're doing what kids do. They're teasing each other, being silly, sticking their tongues out at each other across the table. Completely normal, harmless childhood behavior that any reasonable adult would either ignore or gently redirect. Meri told them to stop sticking their tongues out. The kids, being kids, kept doing it because honestly, what's the harm? They're not hurting anyone, they're not breaking anything, they're just being playful siblings enjoying dinner together. Meri kept telling them to stop, her voice probably getting sharper and more aggressive with each command. Then Mckelty stuck her tongue out one more time, and that's when everything exploded. Meri screamed at Mykelti specifically, singling her out, even though all the children had been doing the exact same thing. She yelled that she'd told Mykelti to stop, that Mykelti was done, that dinner was over for her. Meri didn't just send Mykelti away from the table for a few minutes. She grounded her from finishing her meal entirely. Mykelti had to leave the table while the rest of the kids stayed there, continuing to eat their dinner. Mykelti could hear her siblings giggling, could hear Meri still yelling at them to stop sticking their tongues out, but only Mykelti faced actual consequences. Mykelti described sitting in a corner of her bedroom with her arms wrapped around her head, bunched up, alone, probably still hungry, definitely confused about why she was being punished so severely for something so minor. That image is absolutely heartbreaking. A 7-year-old child sent to bed without finishing her meal because she stuck her tongue out at her siblings during dinner. The punishment didn't fit the crime, not even close, and the fact that Mykelti was singled out while the other children faced no real consequences shows a disturbing pattern of targeted mistreatment. What makes this memory even more significant is that Mykelti revealed it's one of her only memories from Wyoming at all. She attributes the gaps in her childhood memories to trauma blocking, a psychological defense mechanism where the brain suppresses painful experiences to protect itself. The fact that this dinner incident is what stuck in her mind speaks volumes about how deeply it affected her. The dinner incident was horrifying enough on its own, but Mykelti revealed that Meri's abuse followed an even more sinister pattern that extended well beyond childhood punishments. This is where the manipulation gets truly twisted, where Meri's behavior crosses from strict parenting into psychological warfare that left Mykelti questioning her own reality. According to Mykelti, Meri would engage in a classic abuse cycle that kept her trapped in confusion and self-doubt for years. Here's how the pattern worked. After an explosive episode where Meri would scream at Mykelti, punish her unfairly, or target her specifically among the children, Meri would circle back with apologies and promises. She would tell Mykelti how sorry she was, how much she loved her, how she wanted to treat her better. Then Meri would suggest they go on a special outing together, maybe a girl date or some bonding activity that would make Mykelti feel chosen and special. For a child desperate for maternal affection and approval, these invitations must have felt like lifelines. But the reconciliation never lasted. Right in the middle of these supposed bonding moments, Meri would find something to get angry about. Maybe Mykelti said the wrong thing or didn't respond enthusiastically enough, or committed some microscopic infraction that only Meri could perceive. Whatever the trigger, Meri would explode again, and then something truly disturbing would happen. Through verbal manipulation and emotional gymnastics, Meri would somehow twist the entire situation until it became Mykelti's fault. Mykelti described how she would end up apologizing for things Meri had done. She would suddenly be in trouble for reasons she couldn't quite understand. She would feel guilty even though logically she knew she hadn't done anything wrong. Meri would make Mykelti feel like being in her presence was an honor, like Mykelti should be grateful for Meri's attention, but simultaneously Meri would ensure Mykelti felt fundamentally bad and wrong and unworthy. The psychological damage this caused is almost impossible to overstate. This kind of manipulation is textbook emotional abuse, the type that leaves scars far deeper than any physical punishment could inflict. Mykelti was being gaslit before she even had the vocabulary to understand what was happening to her. She was learning that her perceptions couldn't be trusted, that her feelings didn't matter, that somehow she was always the problem even when logic and reason suggested otherwise. For a child, especially one already navigating the complications of a plural family, this kind of treatment is absolutely devastating. What's particularly cruel about this pattern is how it kept Mykelti coming back for more. The apologies and love bombing would give her hope that maybe this time would be different. Maybe Meri really had changed. Maybe they could finally have the relationship Mykelti desperately wanted. But it was always a trap. Meri would inevitably turn on her again, and the cycle would repeat endlessly. Mykelti was stuck on an emotional roller coaster with no way to get off, always hoping for change that never came, always blaming herself for failures that weren't hers. Mykelti dropped another bombshell during the interview that confirms what fans have suspected for years but never had verified. Most of the Brown siblings choose not to have relationships with Meri today, specifically because of how she treated them when they were younger. This isn't about adult disagreements or personality clashes that developed over time. This is about children who survived Meri's household and made the conscious decision as adults that they would never subject themselves to that environment again. Mykelti was careful to acknowledge that not every single Brown child has cut ties with Meri completely. Some siblings still attempt to maintain contact, still try to work on the relationship, still hold out hope that Meri can change, or at least acknowledge the harm she caused. But the majority have made the same choice Mykelti did. They've decided that the damage Meri inflicted outweighs any obligation they might feel to maintain a relationship with someone who helped raise them. And honestly, that decision speaks volumes about how bad things really were. Think about what it takes for multiple children from the same family to independently arrive at the same conclusion about one parent figure. This isn't a case of one child having a personality conflict with an adult. This is a shared experience of trauma that multiple people lived through, and multiple people decided they couldn't forgive or forget. The Brown children have formed a bond over their shared suffering under Meri's care, and part of that bond involves protecting themselves and each other from further harm by maintaining distance from their abuser. Mykelti made an interesting point during the interview that shows remarkable emotional maturity and grace. She said that while she will never have a relationship with Meri because of how Meri treated her, she doesn't think Meri is a bad person overall. She believes Meri made terrible mistakes and engaged in abusive behavior, but she still deserves happiness at the end of the day. Mykelti just won't be part of that happiness, and she's made peace with that boundary. It's a nuanced take that acknowledges human complexity while still holding firm on personal boundaries. But here's where Mykelti's insight gets really profound. She pointed out that Meri is human and still trying to figure things out. Maybe Meri was raised in an environment where the kind of behavior she exhibited was normalized. Maybe she genuinely doesn't understand the impact of her actions. Maybe she's dealing with her own unresolved trauma that she took out on vulnerable children. None of that excuses the abuse, but it does provide context for how someone could engage in such harmful behavior without seeing themselves as a villain. The fact that Christine's book touched on issues with Meri but stayed vague suddenly makes so much more sense. Christine was trying to tell her truth without throwing her children's truth under the bus. She was acknowledging problems without spelling out details that belonged to her kids to share when and if they felt ready. Now Mykelti has opened that door, and the flood of validation from other Brown children has reportedly been overwhelming. Just when you thought the interview couldn't get more explosive, Mykelti pivoted to another relationship that's crumbling, and this one might be even more complicated. She revealed that she's also distanced herself from Robin Brown, and the reasons she gave are absolutely gut-wrenching. Mykelti was used as a pawn, manipulated into playing mediator, and forced to deliver messages that caused pain to her own siblings. The role Robin and Cody forced her into may have contributed to devastating consequences that the family is still reeling from today. Mykelti explained that she and Robin aren't actively communicating right now, though she was careful to clarify that they haven't officially cut each other off. It's more like a mutual silent treatment, a cooling off period that might be permanent depending on what Mykelti discovers about herself and her relationships as she continues to unpack her complicated family dynamics. She's trying to figure out what's true for her versus what was planted in her mind by other people's opinions and manipulations. The reason for this distance is chilling. Mykelti doesn't know if Robin targeted her on purpose when she joined the family, seeking out a vulnerable child who could serve as her safeguard and her foot in the door with the Brown clan. Or maybe Robin genuinely saw that Mykelti needed help and wanted to be there for her. Mykelti is questioning everything now, trying to separate genuine connection from calculated manipulation. And until she has those answers, she can't trust Robin with her heart or her secrets. But here's where it gets truly heartbreaking and potentially connected to the family's most devastating loss. Remember when Garrison Brown and his siblings had that explosive text thread fight about Christmas? Robin and Cody threw an absolute fit, told the kids they didn't want anything to do with them, and canceled the family gift exchange. Garrison later mentioned that he received a text message from Mykelti informing him that Robin and Cody weren't going to do Christmas with the family, that they were done with the gift exchange, that they didn't want to be part of it anymore. That message devastated Garrison. He specifically said it hurt to receive that news from Mykelti, to have his sister be the one delivering such a painful rejection from his father and Robin. But here's the thing, Mykelti didn't send that message because she wanted to hurt her brother. She was being used as a messenger, forced into the middle of a conflict that had nothing to do with her, made to be the bearer of bad news that damaged her relationship with siblings she loved. Robin was using Mykelti to do her dirty work, to deliver messages that Robin and Cody didn't have the courage to send themselves. Industry insiders whisper that this pattern of using Mykelti as a go-between happened repeatedly over years. She was stuck mediating between Cody and the kids, between Robin and the other wives, between feuding siblings who were all hurting and angry. The emotional labor Mykelti performed likely caused conflicts with her siblings who didn't understand that she was being manipulated. Mykelti is finally waking up to the manipulation tactics that were used against her, and what she's learning is absolutely infuriating. During the interview, she revealed that she's been educating herself about unhealthy family dynamics, narcissistic abuse patterns, and the specific ways that manipulators target vulnerable people to gain control. The more she learns, the more she questions whether her relationship with Robin was ever genuine, or if she was simply a tool being used for Robin's benefit all along. Mykelti specifically mentioned reading about how abusers will often seek out someone vulnerable to reel them in, to create an ally within a family structure they're trying to infiltrate or control. And when you look at the timeline of Robin entering the Brown family, Mykelti's concerns start to make horrifying sense. Mykelti was at an incredibly vulnerable point in her life when Robin joined the family. She was struggling with her siblings, dealing with the aftermath of Meri's abuse, navigating the chaos of a plural family that was already showing serious cracks. Then Robin swooped in like a savior. She gave Mykelti something she desperately needed, a mother figure who seemed safe, someone to talk to, someone she thought she could trust. Mykelti openly admitted during the interview that she doesn't know if she would even be here today if Robin hadn't been there for her during that dark period. That's how critical Robin's support seemed at the time, how life-saving that connection felt to a child who was drowning in family dysfunction and unresolved trauma. But now Mykelti is questioning everything. Was Robin genuinely trying to help a hurting child, or was she strategically targeting the most vulnerable member of the family to secure her position? Did Robin see Mykelti as someone who needed support, or did she see an opportunity to create a loyal ally who would defend her, relay her messages, and serve as her connection to the rest of the family? The fact that Mykelti is even asking these questions shows how deeply the manipulation may have run. What makes this situation even more painful is that Mykelti admitted she wants to have a relationship with Robin eventually, but only when she can trust her again. She needs to know that Robin won't manipulate her, that Robin won't betray her confidences, that Robin won't use her as a pawn in family conflicts anymore. Until Mykelti can be certain of those things, she's maintaining her distance. It's a boundary that's clearly costing her emotionally, but one she knows she needs for her own mental health and healing. The psychologist David tried to suggest that maybe it doesn't matter why Robin helped Mckelty, that the support was real regardless of motivation. But Tony immediately backed up his wife, pointing out that it absolutely matters when Robin has hurt other people Mckelty loves. You can't ignore someone's pattern of harmful behavior toward your family just because they were kind to you personally. That's exactly how manipulators maintain power, by creating exceptions and special relationships that blind their targets to the abuse happening right in front of them. Mykelti and Tony also tackled a question that's been on every Sister Wives fan's mind for the past few seasons. What the heck happened to Cody Brown? The man who used to be the fun-loving, charismatic life of the party has transformed into someone barely recognizable, someone who seems constantly angry, defensive, and ready to explode at the slightest provocation. The change has been so dramatic that viewers have been speculating about everything from mental health issues to substance use to some kind of medical explanation for his personality shift. Mykelti was incredibly thoughtful in her response, acknowledging that the Cody she grew up with was genuinely cool. She described him as happy, funny, friendly, and awesome, someone who made every gathering more fun just by being there. That's the dad she remembers from her childhood, and it's clear she mourns the loss of that version of her father. But she also recognized that the man on television now bears little resemblance to the dad she once knew and loved. So what changed? Mykelti pointed to several factors that have likely contributed to Cody's transformation into an angry, bitter man. everyone. First, he's getting older, and age alone can affect personality, especially when combined with life stress and disappointment. Second, he's been famous for over a decade now, exposed to constant public scrutiny and criticism from millions of viewers who have opinions about his every move. That kind of sustained negativity takes a psychological toll that most people can't even imagine. But it's not just strangers on the internet criticizing Kody. His own children have opinions about him, and those opinions are largely negative. His ex-wives have spoken publicly about his failures as a husband and father. 3 divorces, multiple children who refuse to speak to him, endless online hate, watching his family empire crumble on national television. All of that anger and grief has to go somewhere. Mykelti suggested that it's been making him angrier and angrier as the years pass and the losses pile up. However, fans notice something else that could be contributing to Kody's rage transformation. He's gotten absolutely jacked over the past couple of years, especially during his training for special forces. His face looks redder, his body has changed dramatically, and his aggression seems to have intensified right along with his physical transformation. Naturally, speculation arose that he might be taking testosterone supplements, peptides, or other substances that could be fueling his angry outbursts. Mykelti didn't think hormones or supplements were the culprit, though. She pointed out that the anger started showing up on interview sets 6, 7, even 8 years ago, back when Kody was still pudgy and before he got into his current fitness obsession. The anger predated the physical transformation, which suggests it's rooted in emotional and psychological factors rather than chemical ones. The divorces triggered it, the public criticism amplified it, and the estrangement from his children solidified it into the permanent rage that viewers see today. Kody is a man watching everything he built collapse around him. The most heartbreaking revelation from the entire interview might be Mykelti's current relationship with her father, or rather the lack thereof. She and Tony admitted that they're not actively talking to Kody right now, though they were careful to clarify that they haven't officially cut him off either. It's the same vague limbo she's in with Robin, a cooling off period that might stretch into permanence depending on whether Kody can change his behavior and priorities. Mykelti revealed that Kody has tried to reach out multiple times. He's made attempts to rebuild the relationship, extended invitations, opened the door for communication. Every time they've talked, he's been the one initiating contact. So this isn't a case of Kody abandoning his daughter or refusing to make an effort. He's trying, at least on the surface. But here's the problem. Mykelti comes as a package deal, and Kody doesn't seem willing to accept the terms of that package. Mykelti explained that she can't have a relationship with her father if he's not treating her entire family with respect and love. She wants him to be kind to Isabel, to spend time with Savannah, to visit Truly and actually show up for her. She wants him to repair relationships with all of her siblings, not just cherry pick the ones that are convenient or easy. When Kody calls and tries to connect with Mykelti individually, she immediately asks about his relationships with her siblings. And that's where everything falls apart. Kody wants to handle each relationship separately, to work on his connection with Mckelty independently from his issues with other children. He sees them as distinct, individual relationships that shouldn't be tangled together. But Mckelty refuses to accept that framework. She can't pretend everything is fine between them while he's failing her brothers and sisters. She can't enjoy quality time with her dad while knowing he's neglecting Truly or remaining estranged from other kids. For Mckelty, it's all or nothing. Either Kody shows up for the entire family or he doesn't get access to any of them. The irony here is absolutely stunning. Kody spent years demanding that his children accept Robin as a package deal with him. If they wanted a relationship with their father, they had to accept his wife, be kind to her, include her in their lives. He made Robin a non-negotiable part of the deal, and many of his children walked away rather than comply with that ultimatum. Now Mykelti is doing the exact same thing back to him, saying her siblings are her package deal, and Kody is balking at the requirement. Reports are circulating that Kody is frustrated by Mykelti's stance, feeling like she's being unreasonable and punishing him for conflicts that don't involve her directly. But sources close to Mykelti insist she's simply holding her father to the same standard he demanded from his children. She's saying that love doesn't exist in isolation, that family means showing up for everyone, not just the people who are easy or convenient. So what do you think about Mykelti finally speaking her truth? Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the next video is waiting and you won't believe what's coming next.